Hey everybody, welcome back to Old War Legends, where we focus on growing the community. I'm your host Mike. With me as always is Evan.
Orcs and goblins. But more importantly, how do you build a list? That's what we're talking about.
That's right. So we're kind of starting a new series here. This is something that some people have been asking us for a while. There are other, channels and such that cover, hey, here's the hottest and greatest meta list put together for me. We're actually going to take a different approach because that is not actually how we see the vast majority of the player base engaging with this product. We're actually seeing the vast majority of players are casual, fun people who do want to compete with the list, but they don't start with what's the best list I can get. They start with, here's a fun army that I love and a theme that I'm excited by. How can I put together the best version of that list? And so we're really focusing more on that fun thematic list that could still compete when you go to a one-day event and have a great time. You're not necessarily competing to get to the top of the table, but you are still want to, make sure you're having fun with your friends.
Yeah, and so what this video is about is then like, what does that thought process look like? Because here's what I see happen constantly. People are really excited. They love a certain thing about this world. They love certain things about the game. They make a list. Cool. You did your job. That's great. Then they post it on the internet and they are immediately beset by, oh, you did this wrong, or that's not right, or this is not optimal.
Because the only way to play it is meta.
Yeah, and the problem with that is that it's different people have different goals, and the vast majority of people who, first of all, are posting a list online for input, because, for example, I just made my list for an upcoming tournament. I did not ask anyone for help, okay? But most of the people who are asking for help, they're not interested in how do I crush the most skulls, okay? That's not the thing that they're trying to do. So they have a theme in mind, and so we're going to use the Orcs and Goblins as an example of this because it's a really flexible army list. For example, you can build an entirely goblin list, and that's one of the best lists out there. But let's say you're trying to do, something different than that. How do you pick a theme and then play what's good with it, right?
Yep. So this will be an ongoing series we'll keep doing if everybody finds it popular and fun. So just let us know in the comments, the messages, join the Discord. Let us know if you like what we're doing. So let's dive in. We decided to start with Orcs and Goblins just because I said, Evan, what do you want to start with? That's why we started here. So all right, so why are we starting with Orcs and Goblins? Just because I asked Evan, what do you want to start with? And he said, start with Orcs and Goblins. So there's no other reason besides that. Of course, Orcs and Goblins are the best, but that's a different conversation for another time. So beyond that, we really just want to dive in and go through some list construction and talk through the thought process, and in particular, focus on that fun thematic list that could still compete on the table. So we're starting with 2,000 points just because that is the standard, not that there's a right or wrong. We've actually, in our community, we've been experimenting with 2,500 point events recently, and there's been a lot of interest in continuing that. I know next year we're also interested in trying out some smaller size events, that you could do rather than in a single day. You play 3 games. Maybe if we go down to under 1,000, you could play maybe 5 games a day. We don't know. So there's no right or wrong, but the standard right now is 2,000 points. That's why we're starting here for list building. So first things first, with our army building tool, there's multiple army building tools out there. So no one understands there's no preference. We actually use New Recruit. We use this one. We use others. There's a lot of great tools. If you still want to use Excel, you can. I would encourage you use one of those apps. It makes your life so much easier, especially when you have to pull up the rules and references rather. So Evan, Orcs and Goblins. So let's start with the first thing. You decided, hey, I'm a player. I want to Orcs and Goblins. What's the first thing that's going through your mind?
So the first thing you think of is like, okay, what is my theme? And if you're an Orcs and Goblins player, first of all, you're a lunatic, so that's fantastic. I love that.
You're already awesome. Yep.
And you already have in your mind that you either love orcs or you love goblins. That's pretty much how it goes. People have like one or two. So let's say that you're an orc lover, because that's more where I fall on the spectrum, right?
All right, so, that's cool.
Okay, so we want to build an orc list, and in the other reason why we're trying to do this right now, right, Mike, is that a lot of people make an army list before they buy any models. They're like, they make a list, they post it online, and then they're like, so what do you guys think? And then they do all of this work before they're going to buy anything. And so whether or not you're trying to buy to fit a list, or whether you're trying to make a list to fit your army, those are, kind of two different processes. So we're an orc lover. Okay.
So where do we start with the orc list? So there's 2 primary places people typically start. You either start with characters, because you're excited about what are the characters that you're interested in, that you want to base your list around, or you just bang out some of the core. There's no right or wrong answer to that, right? But this is typically the places that you start. But it looks like we're going through Evan's thought process this time. He immediately clicked on characters. So that's where we're going first. So we're looking at all these characters. There's a whole bunch of them here, aren't there, Evan?
Yes. And so we can easily get rid of half of them because they're goblin characters. We're just looking at orcs first. Now, what I'm thinking is we pick a general. Now, especially in Old World and in the army list that you have here, for example, and many of the orcs and goblins army of infamy, the general you pick can actually change quite a lot. So in the Grand Army, you have to take some like Night Goblin characters if you want Night Goblins as core units, which isn't that big of a deal because they're cheap. But for example, in the Nomadic Waaagh, if you have the Orc Warboss or the Black Orc Warboss as your general, those are both very important choices because they change everything about your core selection. It's a little bit different for the Grand Army. It's just about whether you kind of want to go down the route of what your core units are, the Black Orcs or the Night Goblins, or neither, right? So let's just say that I'm obsessed with the idea of doing Savage Orcs because I kind of am. Okay.
Okay, so let's just go down that route. So if we look at the Orcs and Goblins list, right, effectively, there are different lists and different armies. You typically will always see the melee-focused characters and the magic-focused characters. Pretty much every army has that represented. Some armies will have some variant characters, like an engineer or specialist. There's not a ton of those. It depends on the army. Some armies have more. Orcs and Goblins really don't. They're either you are melee-focused, punch someone in the face, or you are caster-focused. And Evan, with his Savage Orcs, looked like he started with his melee character because he clicked on an Orc Warboss. So, Evan, why did you click on Orc Warboss and not Black Orc Warboss? Because we all know the Black Orc Warboss has superior stats and better benefits. He does cost a few more points, but point for point, he punches a lot harder. He does have the tax that you have to take a Black Orc unit if you want to take him 1-to-1. But again, that's not necessarily a tax if you love Black Orcs, because Black Orcs are awesome. So why did you start with the Orc Warboss?
So it's because my theme that I'm sticking with is Savage Orcs, right? So in order to have a Savage Orc, which by the way is not a thing written anywhere, but the way we need to have a Savage Orc is we need to have a guy who's got like basically no armor and he's got Frenzy, right? So we put Frenzy on this guy, we put the War Paint on this guy, so now we've got, without spending any of our magic points allotment, we have a 6-up board save, which is cool. That's actually quite neat. And we don't have any armor, but we don't need it because we're going to ride a Wyvern or maybe a Chariot, something like that. So what's interesting about this is that actually the Savage Orc Warboss isn't a like separate unit entry, so he doesn't have like a different set of mounts. So you can put him on a Boar or a Chariot or the Wyvern, and it still has the same list of options here. Let's just say we're going to take the Wyvern because one thing that I like a lot in all my lists is if my general gets to be on a large target, it's a massive advantage to have that big leadership bubble, regardless of whether the Wyvern is really all that good in combat or whether he makes the War Boss more survivable. Just having the larger leadership bubble is really, really big.
Now, the larger leadership bubble, though, is only super relevant if you're staying near your army, right? And so you almost have a contradiction here. As soon as you say, I'm going to take my general and I'm going to put him on a Wyvern, something that flies, typically like, oh, this is something that's towards the enemy as fast as possible and punch something in the face as fast as possible. And often it outmaneuvers, it gets further ahead than the rest of its army, and they don't get to benefit off his general's leadership. So are you thinking you're making a character that's going to be rushing ahead and punching someone in the face, or you think he's going to be sitting in the back and he's actually more of a counter punch? How are you thinking this through in your head with this
and this is how I almost always play. So when you put him in the center, you have a big 18-inch bubble, which basically gets your whole army, right? And if you start charging towards the enemy, where your units are then following you up, 18 inches is pretty damn far. So even just kind of measuring behind you, where they're lagging behind and they're making a while to get there, you can still generate a lot of leadership. But sometimes they hang back a little bit because with my, like when I play my elf armies or something, I have a dragon, right? And I'm very often trying to use them as a reactive force to try to attack things that get too close. Now, we picked Frenzy, so that's not going to happen.
Nope. We're not going to be reactive. Thematic list.
So this is great. Now the next thing I want is basically so you're totally right to point out that how do we use this guy to keep supporting our forces? Well, hanging in the back would be great, except for Frenzy. So what I'm going to do, Mike, is I'm going to deploy this guy kind of behind the front line and right behind either a unit of Boar Boys or some regular Orcs, and I'm going to try to have it set up so that if anyone tries to Frenzy bait my Wyvern, they are also going to Frenzy bait the unit of Orcs that's kind of like right in front of him. So he kind of they would have to risk getting double charged, right?
Yep, that makes perfect sense. And such. And that matters, right? This is the questions going through at the beginning. Like because if you were saying I want him on a Wyvern, cool. We went through the questions there, but then there's a difference of do I want him in the center and am I charging forward in the center? Or am I going to use him as a counter or the wave 2 of the center? And Evan's more thinking of the wave 2 to find a fun way to deal with the fact that he's frenzied and crazy, wacky stuff is going to happen because of that. Versus he's not intending to put him on the flank, because if you're intending to really overload a flank with the war boss and the wyvern, that would be a different strategy. So these are all valid tactics and different fun ways to think of your list. But these are things you should be thinking about as your selections, not just he's a cool model. How is this model going to synergize with the rest of your list? All right, so frenzied war boss wyvern in the center. Now what?
And keep in mind, he does have a ward save already. So we have a 6
Yeah,
up.
but 6 is not reliable by any means.
Don't care. We're fine. That's plenty. All you gotta do is roll 6s. I love that. Can Savage Orcs use shields?
Yes, it had shield option.
Okay.
So again, Savage in this edition, an earlier edition, Savage Orc was a specific thing. Its old army roster, its old entry. They've removed it. They had Savage Orc models. They kind of really haven't supported them. I'm guessing they didn't sell well for whatever reason. So they still sort of support it in this old release, where you can make them frenzied and they get the ward save, and they do talk about it as Savage Orc thematically, but it's not really a rule set thing in this edition.
Okay, so the Black Maul is a weapon that Beastmen have that gives you D6 extra attacks. It's one of my favorite things in the entire game. It is so freaking funny. This has a slight downside that if you roll a 6, you lose the rule, which is not what happens with Black Maul. But I don't care. We're picking this item because, for one, it's the most expensive magic item or magic sword in the game, and I want to do some damage. So that's why we're picking this.
So why did you start with the weapon? So typically when you pick your melee character, then you start thinking about the combos of what you're building, and then you look at them. And often, especially now with the cap of match play guide rules, can be spent on a single character or model, right? And restricts how much magic items you can take typically once you put them on a big old mount. So often you're making an offensive focused melee character or a defensive focused character. You can ride the line in between, but it looks like Evan said, let's go all offense.
Definitely, yeah. And so we already have, because by the way, right, the Orc Warboss, he's got 4 attacks, and he has Furious Charge. Okay, so that's potentially a 5th one when I charge. If I have Frenzy, that's a 6th freaking attack, okay? And if we have the Battle Axe, that's D6 more. That is a lot. Okay.
That's incredibly rare to get that. Now, what are the Battle Axe stats, though? Does it give you the strength and the AP that you're looking for?
It has strength +2, AP 2, D6 extra attacks.
Okay, so it is effectively a great weapon with D6 extra attacks.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
And hey, if you think that might be a little bit risky, because especially if you roll the 6 and then you don't get the bonus or whatever, this guy is also pretty good. So it's strength +2, AP 2, and has Killing Blow, which is also an amazing roll and is a lot of fun. So, I mean, a lot of these things are pretty good. I think that a lot of competitive lists usually go more for the choppiest choppa. So this guy, it's AP3. Now, if you're wondering why AP3 is freaking amazing, there's a lot of heavy infantry with a shield now that has a 3+ armor save, and you charge into that, and suddenly with your AP2, they still have a 5-up. That's really, that's a big save. And if they have a ward save or something too, that's a lot. So having like AP3 or something can be amazing. So this is potentially a more cheap option where you're still going to have 6 attacks on the charge. But I like the idea of having 12 or 11, because I have to roll a 5. I need to not roll a 6. So let's have it be where I roll a 5, right? And I get 11 attacks. So we're going to do that.
All right. Let's move on.
What is their big downside, right? Well, if we fight a monster or something, we've got some kind of defense, right? So let's look at this guy here is -1 to hit for like cavalry, beast, or monster. So if I have to fight a dragon, -1 to hit from the dragon, that sounds great. I'll pick that. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it helps you versus the monster.
Charm Shield, because you complained about a ward save. There we go.
Okay, so we've got a great character. You can't use the Charm Shield with the 2-handed weapon.
Yeah, no, the Charm Shield's there for a cannonball, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Okay.
So that definitely happens.
So we've got a nice, fun melee character. Now we need a wizard.
Okay.
We've got a weird knob, right? So we can.
Do you need a wizard or do you want a wizard?
I want a wizard. Now Orc wizards have, first of all, they've got Waaagh magic, which is freaking amazing. So we're gonna pick that because it's a nice, fun vibe. Mike, what happens if we just put a frenzy on our wizard? What do you think about that?
Well, you might charge something you don't want to.
Well, I'm going to put him in a unit of orcs that are frenzied anyway. So basically, it's a wash.
Well, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
At least you get the ward save.
Yes, we get the ward save, and we can pick. We could take some arcane items or something. I don't know what any of these. Oh, it's definitely this guy, Staff of Badoom, because then we have the plus. How much is it? D3 to cast?
No, you want the staff, the Mork one. It's the Idol of Gork, not the Staff of Badoon. That's different. It's the Idol of Gork.
Okay, so we get,
because this gives you the 3-inch additional range, and it allows you to That's huge. That's one of the best magic casting items in the game.
Right. And so we can still kind of go with a frenzied orc wizard, but he's got level 4, he's got +2 to cast. And then hey, we got the rule. What is it? Is it mob rule where you get +1 to cast? Yeah, you get +1 to cast if you're in a unit of orcs with unit strength 10 or more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
Again,
so,
this is an orc thing that most people forget about because almost everybody is taking goblin casters and almost nobody's taking orc casters. But orc casters have that really cool special rule.
Yes, and guess what? You can actually make a unit of orcs have skirmish if you wanted to. So you could have a little unit of orcs skirmishing around.
Right. Slow it. Did we already leave characters? You're moving too fast. What happened?
Well, okay, so just to the way I usually do it is I get my Fighty melee general guy because he generally has the best leadership, right? And then I have my wizard and I pick out what I want from that. Then I stop for a while and I go on to what are my actually blocks of troops? Because for example, we just picked an infantry character. If our whole army is mounted, he's now running around all by himself with no one to hide behind or join. So that's a problem. So we need to start thinking about, okay, what units do we want, right?
Okay. All right. So we're going to take it. We're not saying we're done with characters. We're saying let's go flesh out some of the core of the army and we can come back to characters.
And then usually what I try to do is I try to pick all the things that I'm really excited about, that I want in the list based on the models I have or the models I want to buy. And then when we figure out how many points we have left over, and then we fill those in with either maybe there's a BSB or there's an extra magic item like a power scroll or something to fill in 20 points here or there, or a magic banner, right? So I've played against Savage Orcs before because you can just say, okay, let's give them Frenzy, let's give them War Paint, right? Oh, and you can get Big Stabbers, that's amazing. And Big Guns, because we're doing that too. So we buy all these upgrades, and the guys are only 9 points each, and they're Strength 4, Toughness 4 in combat. We've got some impact hits. We got like Frenzy, and we have a 6-up ward, so they have some kind of a defense, even if we end up going. I think that I kind of like the idea of thrusting spear or throwing spears, because then if you charge, you get to do 2 ranks of attacks, and if you get charged, you have 2 ranks of attacks. You can get a big blob of guys, and you can still have a lot of attacks in either situation. And it's the same price as additional hand weapons, which is the same number of attacks, but you don't get to have a shield. So it's kind of a wash as to which one you might want.
Yep, that's fair. But that's assuming you give them shields, which you haven't done yet.
I think we're going to do shields and the throwing spears. And then
what about light armor?
Well, no, because you can't have armor if you go the savage.
See, that's the you have to pick one or the other. Okay.
Right. Then how big is this unit, right? So on a 30mm base with these guys...
You do have to ask yourself, though, with you're just taking shields if you don't have light armor. Is it really worth taking at that point for just a 6-up save?
So when we get charged, we get parry for a 5-up. And we get... I think yes, because one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the way my models are laid out. Because my models are going to have the shields on them. Because we're either going to go... shield and throwing spear, or additional hand weapon, which is 1 point cheaper, right?
Yeah, so those are kind of the options going through your head at the time. Yep.
Right. The downside of additional hand weapons is that when we charge, we get we have the same number of attacks as throwing spears, but we if the other person swings before us, then we can lose those attacks quickly. That's the downside.
That for sure. Yeah, that happens more often than not. Definitely, the throwing spears and the shields gives you more versatility for sure.
Right, and this is our Big Guns unit, so this is kind of a unit we care about. Like, we kind of want this unit to be...
So the Big Guns unit, for those who are not familiar, it's effectively you're picking one of your orc units and you're spending extra points. It's incredibly powerful. And you're saying this unit is going to be a lot better than all the other units. Evan, what does a Big Gun unit get?
So this unit gets the +1 strength in combat and armor bane 1. Which, when you combine with Chappas, which is that when you charge, you can reroll wounds of 1 and AP of 1. So, if we charge, the front rank has 2 attacks, they're AP 1, strength 4, they reroll ones to wound, and they still have the armor bane 1 as well, and the second rank can make 1 attack. So we've got, like, let's say we're 5 wide, we've got, like, 20 attacks, I think, 15?
Yeah, Big Guns is great. I typically love to put Big Guns on my Boar unit. Because it's a great combo on them, but it's definitely, you should find a unit to upgrade to Big Guns because it's great.
Yeah, so and you're totally right. That is the thing we're thinking about. Now, right now, I'm really excited about this unit of the Big Guns on foot, but if we're going to take the Boar Boys and we're going to have them be frenzied as well, will they be the Big Guns? Now, I'm of the opinion that if you're going to take both the regular Orcs and the Boar Boys, that maybe it's better to have the Big Guns be the infantry unit because it's a little easier to put buffs on them, and the cavalry already has spears, so the cavalry can already get a halfway decent strength some of the time anyway.
Yeah, it allows your cavalry to get up to, because remember they're only starting at strength 3 if you don't give them to Biggins. So Biggins gets them to strength 4, and then remember it's not a lance, so it's just a cavalry spear. So that's only going to give them +1 on the charge, right? So it's effectively it's allowing your bow boys strength 5. So again, there's no right or wrong here. So the next big thing is how big do you go with a unit? Because these are not on 25.
Yeah, they're on 30 millimeter bases, which means they get kind of big.
They're
And so
big
I've been
boys.
playing around with Bestigor recently. I used to run my Bestigor in like 3 ranks deep, and most games I end up with only like the front rank left alive. So I think that when you have the infantry units that have the 2 ranks of attacks, you might be more often wanting to have almost like 4 ranks deep, and so you can still lose
With
some
what
and still have
frontage?
plenty of attacks.
How many models in front?
So I'm thinking 6 in the front and 4 deep. Now, the reason why we're talking about this, right, is that when you pick how big a unit is going to be, we kind of need to know vaguely what the movement tray and the formation we're going to be in is, and whether that's like totally.
Got to think about your
unfeasible.
footprint.
Yeah. So the
Yep.
footprint
So
is
starting
where
with
we're
the
coming
footprint.
here. So Mike,
So
you
it's
play more orcs
part
than
of the
me.
equation is yep.
Yeah. How big? How
So
wide do you set up your black orcs, right?
So back in the day, it used to be either you were 10 model wide unit or you're 5 model wide. But now in this edition, that's not really become the norm at this point. So I typically am always running a Black Orc unit just because I love the Black Orcs. I think they're super cool and I love the models. I use some of the AOS models, the Boys, and they're super cool. Oh boy, was that a project to get those to rank up. But that's a different conversation. So again, they're very, very strong. You want to get a lot of their attacks. You want at a minimum have them 6 wide, but it really also depends upon how big the unit is. So there's a pretty big difference of whether you want to say you want to have 3 ranks deep versus 4 rank deep and maximize also your footprint, but also do you have other units that are so you actually do want to take up a lot of space so that this unit is more of a problem for people to get around
Right.
or to avoid or to tie up. So typically I would like my 30 by 30 of the Black Orcs. I think I have them 6 wide, but 7 wide is pretty good too. It's pretty much 6 or 7 are the sweet spot I find. I find once you start going 8 wide, it becomes very hard to maneuver. Still only have movement 4. So that's really the difference there. I don't think there's a strong right or wrong answer. And I've seen this very similar pattern in other armies, whether they're Chaos Warriors, whether they are Bestigors, right? It's that 6 or 7 frontage. But that makes a big difference on how many models you're taking. You also need to figure out, are you putting in characters into that unit as well? Because that will also determine how you figure out what is the frontage you want to use. So Evan, let's pick for this unit 6 or 7 wide.
I'm going to say 7 because for one thing, you're going from the mindset of my unit is so wide it's hard to maneuver. I have frenzy. So having it be hard for me to make a charge at an oblique angle is almost a good thing because it makes it harder for people to try to frenzy bait me because if I'm too wide to even wheel over there, I can't charge because I can't make it in time. Right?
That's a good point.
So in some ways, I actually don't hate the idea of these guys being a bit bigger, chunkier, and wider and harder to move because they're just a big fist that runs right up the middle of the table. And then if you try to run away from them, you get hit by other stuff. That's the idea. So again,
we start with the 7 frontage. Now you got to figure out depth. How many ranks do you want?
I want 4. Orcs don't have horde, or is this wrong?
No, they don't have horde. Goblins have horde.
That's interesting. So orcs don't have it. So we want +2 ranks for the warband for sure, and then I want an extra rank just to have guys who die. So I'm gonna go 4 deep. So that's 28 models, right? Now I'm already planning in my head to potentially put either my wizard or my potential battle standard bearer in there. But for now, let's leave it like this because we don't have any characters joining, and so we'll leave it at 28. The last thing to do when you pick up the big fancy flagship unit is to figure out what banner we want because very often we have some pretty exciting banners in here that can do us even more damage, right?
And it just depends on how you're building your army, right? Some people really love to make sure their anvil unit has banners and their magic items. I've actually had a goblins army having actually very few magic items. I actually only have typically run 3 or 4 in the entire army. There's no right or wrong answer, but I just love having more points to put more models on the table. So pros and cons on how you're building your list.
Okay, so I'm excited, I think, about trying to get us up to Weapon Skill 4. So I think that's why you get the raid. And now, people almost always take this on their Black Orcs. And one of the things I think about is
the best banner in the Orcs and Goblin army.
It probably is, but Black Orcs already had Weapon Skill 4, and it makes you go to 5, which is not as much of a breakpoint defensively as going from 3 to 4, because so many things in the game, like let's say Dragon Ogres, for example, are Weapon Skill 4, And if you're weapon skill 3, you're also getting hit on a 2+ by anyone with weapon skill 7, like a Star Dragon or a Prince.
Characters will hit you on 2s, and most elite infantry will hit you on 3s. Yep.
Right. So what I'm saying is, I really like this on the Orcs because now they're weapon skill 4 now, and they have +1 combat res. We have kind of that war banner vibe and the other one. And we don't want to lose combats because this unit, if it loses combat, loses frenzy. So let's not lose combat, right?
Should give him a command at all yet?
Yes, we got the boss, we got the standard bearer and the champion. I don't think there's very many like items you put on the bosses for an orc unit that has frenzy, right? I don't think we need that because again, there's like initiative and impetuous and stuff like that. So we don't need
if this thing charges, it's going to hit hard enough.
Yeah, very. And hey, remember we have big stabs which do impact hits. Adorable. Big question here is I don't think you get the +1 strength from big guns to this because this just uses your regular strength and big guns is for only attacks.
Go back to big guns. I believe it's special +1 strength characters and when engaged in combat. No, it says when you're engaged in combat. If you charge something, you are engaged in combat. I would say that applies to the impact hits.
Okay, so now we have strength for impact hits. Fun, love that. So we got a big unit. It's in our core. It's a big centerpiece. That's the thing we're really excited about. We're gonna have to fill in more core and fill in other stuff later.
Okay, how many points is that?
380 points.
Okay, so a good chunk of points, but a heck of an anvil unit. But it also doesn't get us up to our core.
Right. So the question is, and this is where people kind of split off, right? Do we try to fill in the rest of our core now, or do we move on to the next thing that we're really excited to put in the list? And I think I usually lean towards the latter because I want to put in all the things I'm really excited about first, and then I want to fill in points that I'm missing after that. So the next thing I'm really excited about, right, is I'm really excited about Boar Boys. But Mike, I don't play Orcs and Goblins. All I know about these guys is they're really, really cheap. But other than that, what do we do here? What do we take?
Boar Boys are first of all awesome. And there's so many different models you could potentially use for them. You could use the old Boar Boy models if you have those. I actually recently picked up the new Boar Boy or Ard Boy Boar model things that they made for AOS are massive things, and they sell them in units of 3s. Those will not fit even on the 30 by 60 base size. You'll be way sticking out. It's not going to rake up. I've gotten Chaos Knights to rake up. You're not going to get not without doing some crazy stuff like putting them on different elevations. So actually what I ended up doing is I ended up picking great Goblin Riders that they recently released for AOS, which is super cool, which is not the one goblin on the wolf mount, but the 2 goblins on the mount. Those are actually larger models. I didn't read the photos. They are super cool. So I'm actually using them as my proxies from our Boar Boys, and they are so awesome. I'm so glad I've done that. So I encourage everyone out there to find the models that you set you. But the Boar Boys are super, super cost effective. Yes, they are. The biggest them is they're not full knights, so you don't get the lances. You're only going to get the spears, right? So it's not as good as a lance, and you're not going to get that full plate armor, right? So you're not going to have quite as much armor. So you have to plan for that to figure that out. They do have the boars though, and the boars hit better than the average horse on the charge and such. So they hit really hard. They're I think in the game they're probably the top tier medium cavalry unit in the game.
Yeah, like, and when you're saying medium cavalry, you're talking about cavalry that's either like a core unit, or in general, it's cavalry that either has 1 attack or it has a 3+ armor save. Those are the 2 things that you go from really heavy and really like elite to going to like you're just in the middle.
Yeah, and they're mid cavalry. They're not fast cavalry. They're not in the same bracket as Grail Knights or Blood Knights or Chosen Knights, but they don't cost nearly as many points, which is why they're so effective. And I love fielding these guys. And again, you can 8. I've seen that very common, or you field them in bricks of 10. I've also seen them fielded as bricks as 5 or 6, just to go more of a wide frontage. Depends. So, Edwin, what are you doing with these Boar Boys? Are you running them up the center? Are you running them on a flank? Besides Boar Boys are cool, before we craft the unit, what do you want to do with them?
So first of all, I just want to point out, frenzy can be a huge negative when you have one frenzied unit that people just go, oh, let me just lead them around the table, and I call it chasing butterflies, where you're just, like my Gorgon is just chasing an eagle going, not reaching it, right? If your entire army has frenzy, entirely different story, because now, okay, you bait one unit, but what about all the other freaking units now either flank you, or they double charge you, or they catch you, right? So having your whole army have frenzy is nowhere near as bad as having just one unit that has it.
Yeah, keep in mind, we are not focusing on winning top table meta at a big championship event. We're on fun thematic lists that are super cool to put on the table, are going to bring joy to you, and you're still going to have fun, and they still can compete to a degree, right? So keep that in mind. We're focused on fun thematic lists that can compete. That's what we're focused on.
Okay, so Mike, you were saying that normally you put the big guns on your board boys. However,
Yes, I like to
what
do
if
that
you
because I have
use
Black Orcs in the center of my army, which
yes,
you have a different
and that's
thematic
more
on.
of the meta build. You got the Black Orcs in the core; they're already strength 4. They don't need any other kind of
Yep.
bonus there, and you got the big guns on your board boys, and then you don't have any regular orcs at all. Like there aren't any regular orcs. You have goblins or
Not
whatever.
currently. Just because honestly, for me, it's not that the orcs aren't great. It's just that I'm not a big fan of the old models, and I'm hoping in the edition 2 we'll get a refresh on the orc model. But that's a different story for another day. So in terms of your board boys, are these going to be a supporting unit for your anvil in the center, or are they trying to run them up the field? What do you want to do with these guys?
So, what I want the board boys to do is to be an unescapable, speedy murder tide for anyone who tries to run away from the regular orcs in the center. So these ones are going to go right next to the orcs on the flank, and then if you're trying to like escape or bait the orcs or trying to like dodge to the left or right of them or use evasive tactics, that's when the board boys crash into you because they've got the swift stride. And guess what? You're not big guns, but what if you just have the Banner of Butchery, which gives you +1 strength when you turn your charge? And if you're board boys, that's probably a lot of the time, right? So
for sure, especially if you use them as a support unit. So if you're not charging them up, if you're waiting for that savage orc to rush up the center, and these guys are just waiting on the side. Remember, it's a 6-turn game, right? You don't have to charge turn 1. So if these guys are waiting on the side to be that counter punch or that keeping your opponent honest, it's almost like a football, like it's a tight end.
Yeah.
So all right, so keeping them close to the center.
So this banner, so big guns would have been 2 points per model, right? And this banner's 35. Yep. So it would have been 24 if we use a 12-man unit. Now I've seen board boy units that are pretty big because they're actually pretty cheap. 19 points might sound like a lot, but compared to like Empire Knights or Bretonnian Knights, they're usually more in the 24 or 25 range. That's pretty cost effective. So we can
12?
go up to, I'm going to do 14.
14. So what's your frontage?
7.
Wow. Okay.
Now here's the reason for this, Mike.
Unit.
The reason for it is 1, Frenzy is harder to bait if I'm wide. Okay?
That is true.
And then if I do make it into you, I have a mountain of meat that is more likely to overrun into something else as well.
Okay. So let's go back to the unit.
Yeah, and we've got 2 kind of big units here. This one's kind of like 7 wide by 2.
Don't forget, tables do have terrain. I'm just going to remind you of that.
Yeah, and that's just funneling them into the kill zones of where my guys are going to eat them, right? They're going to
I like that kill zone. Okay, so they're frenzied. So how come we're not taking the heavy armor?
So you can't have the heavy armor and be frenzied because again, this is supposed to be your savage orc upgrade type thing. Now, you could go the other way, which is give them heavy armor and shields to get them some armor save, and then if you want to still like role play as if you are Savage Orcs, you can take the Angry Lads flag to get Frenzy.
Give me the Frenzy banner.
Yeah, so then we have a banner that gives us Frenzy, and then we have the quote-unquote heavy armor, right? And then we have shields for armored hides. And we still have a 3+ armor save unit that has Frenzy. The only downside of doing it this way is now we don't have the Strength 5 on the charge because we used a different banner.
Yeah, and you don't get the ward save. So, I mean, the armor save is more reliable. There's pros and cons to. So let's just pick a direction.
I'm going to pick the direction of going the real Savage Orc 5, which is this way, and we have Strength 5 on the charge with our 2 attacks each with our Frenzy. I like that a lot. We already have Tusker charge. Oh, I'm sorry, they have Furious. Okay, so these guys have 3 attacks each. That's a lot.
Scroll down. We can't see.
Sorry, yeah, Furious Charge.
There we go.
Yeah, so they have Furious Charge
they
and
have
Frenzy.
all the rules that you want. They have Armored Hide.
Yeah.
So effectively gives them barding. They have Choppas. Don't forget your Chopper rules. They're so good. There's a reason. There's a reason why you don't want to necessarily give magic items or weapons to orcs because they get the Choppa benefits. Plus they have Counter Charge, so they're a proper cavalry unit, right? And Furious Charge, so they get that +1 attack on the great.
Yeah.
Now remember that applies to the riders, the Furious Charge. It doesn't apply to the mounts themselves. But they have Impetuous, but you already have Evans going with Frenzy, so that doesn't really matter. So typically they'd want to be near the Black Orcs, but irrelevant. They do have Swift Stride too. So, you know, they're boars, but they're fast boars.
So they're movement 7 with Swift Stride, which by the way is just as fast as an Empire Knight. So there you go.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got our 2 big medium like melee units. Now these guys could use some character support. For example, having like the war boss, you know, within leadership range, they can have some ranks adding to his leadership for their better leadership, right? or maybe a BSB that can help them reroll, whatever. That's all great. Now, we got some frenzied units. Now, if you have some units that aren't frenzied, you can stick them kind of in front or kind of blocking up those charges with those other units there, and they can help keep these guys from running off where you don't want them to go. That's something we can fill in the extra points with. And we can come back
we don't
to
have
that.
to go back to this just yet, but one of the interesting choices Evan just unlocked is with his wizard, his weird knob. It was okay. He started with a weird knob. I want a weird knob. The melee core unit that's on foot, cool. And then he went and added a cavalry unit. Actually, his weird knob could go in either of those. So now actually he has to make a choice. Do I want my weird knob on foot to go with my orcs, that frenzied orcs on foot, or do I want to put him in the core unit, right? And this is where you go back and put him on that additional mount if that's what you decided to do.
Right, and then you know what? We also have the problem, Mike, of how do we decide whether to be mounted or on foot, right? That's based on what unit we want to join. But also, how do we decide what lore magic we want? Because
always Waaagh magic.
Right. Well, that's a good point.
Always Waaagh magic.
But all I'm trying to say is
always Waaagh magic.
Okay. Most people don't have access to Waaagh magic, Mike, because they're not playing as Orcs and Goblins.
Waaagh magic is so good, and it's the most fun magic lore in the entire game.
Okay. Sidebar: why is Waaagh magic the most fun, and why is the best?
Because it's orcs. Well, first of all, we all know orcs are the best. But besides that, it's the random factor. And this is, again, we've gone back to referencing our video in the past where we ranked one of the armies that are the most fun to play. Orcs are at the top of our list. Orcs and beastmen are the more fun to play. And the reason why is because of the factor. So old world in terms of you don't know what it's going to do. So the orcs and goblins, first of all, the spells are actually very powerful. But sometimes the Foot of Gork might step on your units just as much as it steps on the enemy units. And that is just hilarious. And so I love the the Waaagh magic and all the shenanigans that happen with it. It's just good. But besides that, actually, if you look at the raw stats of the spells, they're actually really powerful. It's a very good lore.
Yes, we've got minus D3 to enemy weapon skill and initiative. That would be great before you charge in with your orcs, because you generally either have weapon skill 3 or 4, something like that. So if you can lower the weapon skill, that's more. Now you're hitting them more because they're lower weapon skill, right? And orcs don't have any access to like reroll ones or anything, so that's probably the best way to give you some good damage.
Just the choppas rerolls.
Oh, yeah, that's real for wounds, not for. But I'm talking about trying to hit the guy in the first place, right? So if you're charging into some Swordmasters of Hoeth, let's make sure you actually hit the damn guy.
Well, you still have the Waaagh on your general. Don't forget the Waaagh.
So does the Waaagh affect the unit he's in, or just everybody nearby?
It affects the unit he's in.
Okay, so
it affects his mount.
Okay, so every orc player I've ever seen like forgets to use the Waaagh rule.
Yeah, let's go back to it. Let's go pull it up right now.
Right, yeah.
Let's go back to your war boss. Everyone forgets the Waaagh. And proper orcs scream Waaagh as loud as they can in the room, so everyone's intimidated
just
by him.
Just to point this out, right, Mike? This is just an orc character gets this. You get to do this if you're not even the general. Like you would just have like a BSB orc guy who joins those boar boys. He can just do the Waaagh as well, right?
Yeah, right. So you have the challenging part is you have to say this is the turn. This is go turn. Go time. So you have to declare it in the command sub phase. Invoke the power of the Waaagh. So you need to pass a leadership test. I that test before when I won. It was so sad. But as long as you pass it, right? All of a sudden the character, any orc unit, not goblin unit, orc unit they have joined may reroll hits of 1. And you get additional plus in the combat resolution. It is super powerful. Everyone forgets to do this all the time because typically their war boss is on a wyvern and not so come up that often.
Yeah, so good on a wyvern. If the orc boss is on the wyvern and he helped him and his wyvern, because remember, my whole point of this guy was I wanted 11 attacks, right? So the next thing I want is for them to all hit. So we can reroll those ones to hit. That's fantastic.
As long as you Waaagh as loud as you can.
Right. But we also want these other guys to do damage too. So we would have potentially putting another character in there to give a Waaagh to one of these other units. So that'll be where we start doing. War boss. Let's do a well. Can we do another war boss? Because war bosses and weird knobs are 0 to 1 per 1,000. So that's where we start running into. We have
you're going to be stuck. You could go to a big boss. Does the big boss have it? I don't remember off the top of my head. Let's look it up.
He does have Waaagh.
He does have Waaagh. There you go. Put a big boss.
Okay. Now the big question here, because obviously we're doing Frenzy and Warpaint to stick with our theme, is he joining the foot unit or is he joining the cavalry unit? Now I'm
typically when you have two big beefy units, you want a character in each unit. So now Evan has to make that choice. Which character do I want to put in which unit?
So the reason why I'm doing this, right, is that, Mike, more often the case is that the wizard will have if on foot, doesn't have that long charge range. So he might not be baited. He might not be running off very early in the game, and therefore might have more time to cast magic missiles or vortexes, which require you to have not charged to do them, like the Foot of Gork, right?
I don't know that sounds super orc.
No, Well, like the point we're trying to do with this video, right, is how much of it should be theme and how much of it should be like actually having some kind of a strategy here, right? So the strategy is that I think I want my wizard on foot so that he's in my foot slogging unit. He'll have a couple of turns to try to cast his vortexes and magic missiles before we start running off and then getting
Yep.
into melee, right? That's what I'm thinking.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
and
And inherently
also
that will be true just because he's on foot. So you're gonna have more time to do.
So the mob rule is all about having unit strength 10. So the
Yep.
unit on foot has more guys in it. So we're going to have unit strength 10 for more of the game. So I think that having
Very true.
him on foot is another synergy there as well.
Mm-hmm. And also a lot of his buffs, if you want magic for hexes, enhancements with the Evil Zone Shining, they are radius buffs. They're not particular units. So being in the unit on foot, but if your cavalry unit, your boar is a supporting unit nearby, almost always he'll be able to benefit that, give them the benefit of his buffs if you get Evil Sun Shining.
Okay, so let's just have the BSB guy not die. And so the point of that is we're going to take Trollhide Trousers to help keep this guy alive.
Honestly, that's probably one of, if not the top 3 items in the whole game right now.
Okay, so we've got a Trollhide Trousers and we have a Charm Shield. We already have the War Paint for a 6 up all the time. The Trollhide gives us 5 up for regen. We don't have armor, so we're going to take a Great Weapon. And so the Charm Shield is just there if we hit with a random cannonball, something like that.
I mean, Great Weapon with a Waaagh and Choppa rule, super effective on orcs.
Right, and let's just point out, Mike, this guy's only 150 points. So if he just shows up, has a couple attacks that are pretty good strength, so he can, like, sometimes you charge in with your big unit into an enemy unit of, like, let's say they're Blood Knights, or let's say, like, they either have really high armor or really high toughness, and you have, like, 20 attacks, and you get, like, 1 wound through, and you're like, oh, that sucks. But then you have a character in there, and he makes 3 attacks, and he gets, like, 2 or 3 of those through, and you're like, oh, great. You know, it helps kind of balance out those times where you charge into a unit that's a little bit harder to deal with.
He starts with 3 attacks. He gets Furious Charge.
Oh,
He'll have
this
the
guy gets
Frenzied
Furious
Warpaint.
Charge too?
Yeah,
Oh my God, I'm
orcs
so
are awesome.
jealous
We went
of
over
orcs.
this. Orcs are the best. So he'll have four attacks, rerolling ones, plus the chopper rule on the Great Weapon. He's gonna crack some heads.
Okay, so now what we really need to do is fill in the other small little units that orcs are amazing at taking because they can use either goblins or skirmishers or small squads to we need guys who are going to run around and catch people who are running away from us. We have objective holders. We need some archers because when somebody puts like a great eagle right in front of me, I want to have some way to like just shoot that guy or something like that. So what other units do we fill in?
Oh, if he puts it in front of you, this army's going to be charging it. But let's go ahead.
Well, okay. Why don't we talk about that? How do we keep ourselves from getting frenzy baited? What units can we use?
Well, you need to put units in front of your units to prevent being frenzy baited, right? So fast cavalry are typically the best way to go. It's not the only way to go. You could also just have sacrifice. Those are really the 2 ways to go. You have fast things that will just pop in and out of the way, or you just have speed bumps or layers of things they're so cheap and they're going to die, and you don't care that they're going to die. They're just doing their purpose of giving you more board control and more control over your frenzy units. So, Evan, which way do you want to go?
So let's say I've got some goblins. I got 10 regular goblins here because guess what? Regular goblins have the option of taking skirmish, right?
They do.
And so we've got 10 goblins
per 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got if we decide to take the short bows, which I think is worth 10 more points just to have some arrows, because every once in a while you've got a single like a unit of Illyrian Reavers, like 5 armorless toughness 3 fast cavalry guys who are sitting there on your objective scoring like 50 or 100 victory points or whatever, and you're like, if I could just fire a couple strength 3 arrows at you, I would be able to take all those points away, right? And that's think about it right? That's more points than this unit even is potentially to keep an objective from being scored for 1 turn. And we can take 0 to 1 per 1,000 of these guys in skirmish. And so if you're looking at this list, nothing in this list is top meta tournament competitive in every single list. But is this an effective list? I think it could be. I think there's some stuff in here that's plenty playable. It's thematic, it's interesting, and we can use these goblins in many different ways. We can guard our objective, we can sit on a baggage train, or we can keep our orc unit from being baited, right? And because these guys have impetuous,
it's definitely gonna be a super fun list.
Yeah, I think that like this is the kind of thing that I'd be immediately moving towards if I was buying the Orcs and Goblins army, and these are the models I'm going to be picking
You
out.
mean when you're buying the Orcs and Goblins
Oh
army?
my God, I already have 8 armies, Mike.
The Orcs and Goblins are so much fun.
Yeah, almost everyone who has 8 armies has Orcs and Goblins, to be fair. So we still have more core points to spend. Now, Orcs and Goblins core has some of the cheapest and most effective units in here. We can't take Night Goblins because we don't have any Night Goblin characters, but that doesn't stop us from taking Wolf Riders.
Wolf Riders are good.
And these
Very
guys,
cost effective.
oh my god, and they've got some amazing rules. So we've got reserve move, which is interesting
Hmm.
rule because it can really help you just get around the board very quickly, get to the objective, stuff like that. We can have cavalry spears for charging or short bows for shooting. I think we're more often going to be getting impetuous and then using leadership 5 to try not to charge. So I'm going more towards that. They already have the skirmish rule, so we don't even have to buy anything to do that if we need to. Or if you're worried about
Correct.
getting baited to charge in random directions, you can always just go into open order, and then it forces you to only have to go in one way. It can help you
Yeah. Or
run
just
in circles.
be near your war boss on the wyvern, right, and benefit from his leadership.
Right. So the only challenge here is, do we go for feint flight, which is my favorite rule in the entire game, or do we not because it's 2 points per model and these guys are supposed to be cheap?
I mean, this is why I never buy them. They're cheap. They're not as effective, and they have impetuous. Suddenly it's like this cheap throwaway unit that you don't care if it lives or dies. You're starting to sink a lot more points, or it starts to hurt a whole bunch more when you lose control of it. So
So
pros
let's
and
say we
cons.
take like 10 of
I
them
mean,
and we
it's
put all the upgrades
yeah,
on it, and all of a sudden they're 150 points. They're not 50 points, they're 150, right?
yeah. That's where I'm like, I'd lost the purpose of the unit. I'd always rather 5-man throwaway unit they're just as effective as trying to plink off one wound or trying to they'll sacrifice themselves to direct different enemies something, or they're trying to get rid of that eagle, like you said. I like it that it is a utility unit, and it's not going to be a problem if it lives or dies. It's worth sacrificing 50-60 points to get that one utility.
So a big question here is on units like this, what types of champions or command and stuff do we take? Now, on a Wolf Rider mob, we're almost always going to take the boss because he has higher leadership, so we're already getting an immediate +1 just for having him show up in this unit. So I think that having that
Yeah.
boss is pretty good. The other question is, do we take a musician for the +1 to rally? Because you're very often going to be running over there and trying to flee. But again, when the unit is already really, really cheap, do we want to put 14 points of guys on this unit, or do we just not care what happens to it?
I don't care what happens to it personally. At that point, like, it depends what you're trying to do, and this is where I keep. If it's meant to be a sacrificial unit, you don't want to spend points on it. Let it just, if it dies, right? And there's only 50 points, whatever. As soon as it starts getting closer to that 100 points, it starts to bite a little bit more. Yes, is the difference of reliability 5 to a 6 leadership good? Yes, it is. But 6 is still really bad. So I wouldn't be betting on that unit to be doing what I want it to do if it has to make a leadership test.
Okay, let's just say that I wanted to have a bit more of a utility unit. So what I would do is I would have a boss, and then I would buy Feigned Flight instead of Musician, because then I'm automatically rallying, and then I can have, let's just say, 8 guys. Now I've got a couple for unit strength to score an objective or to take the baggage train. I've got Feigned Flight so that if I run out in the front, right, and I try to bait enemy units to come towards me. I can flee and then rally and then fire some arrows because I have fire and flee and feint flight. That
Yeah,
combination is
it's
very,
pretty
very
good
cool.
utility unit, even still for 100 points. But
Yeah.
you're hitting that threshold of, from sacrificial unit, you've now gone to utility, right?
Right.
And so it's a few
So
more
this is a
points.
utility unit. A sacrificial unit might look a little bit more like we take 5 guys who are, where do they go? Wolf Riders, and we probably don't even take the boss, and we just keep the spears and then nothing. So if they flee, and it's only 50 points. This is half as much. We got 2 of these just running around.
Yeah, you could do shields or bows. Either way, they're unlikely to do much. But
Yeah.
yep, that's what you would do.
Okay. I feel like this is interesting. We've got some options here. Just to point out, by the way, orc mobs have this funny little thing they can do where they can actually have shields and war bows. So if
Mhm.
you are less excited about trying to have 2 ranks of guys attack when you charge or whatever, you could have a war bow and just sit there whenever someone's not being able to do charge by you. You can have quite a decent amount of strength 3 arrows firing out from these orcs. And the warbow, by the way, has the 24-inch range, which the short bows of the goblins have much less. So that extra range really helps you. What I find very often is the case is that people are often shooting at enemies that are about 14 inches away because it's just outside of like most charge ranges. So having like a warbow or a longbow usually gives you like that +1 to hit because you're not at long range a lot of those times because you have the
Mhm.
extra range in the first place. And that's where that breakpoint can be pretty important. So that is another option for this big unit where even if you really like doing melee damage, you can still have your parry save, right? Because now we're going to get a parry save and we get a 5 up, and we can have a bow
Yep.
for all the other times. And guess what? It's less points because it's free. Okay, what else do we put in this army? So I think that we've got plenty of characters. We don't have to take any goblin characters to get regular goblins, and we still have 400 points left. Now I think that what you have to do with this kind of list
Some
is you
big
have to
stuff.
take a giant.
Giants are awesome.
I think we have to throw a giant in there.
For
Okay.
no other reason besides it's cool.
Okay. Now, should we take artillery with this kind of list? We've got guys that charge across the table. Do we have?
Now I will say this: when you're making the choice of the giant with an orc, there's that. There was another entry over there, Evan. Look, go back to rare.
Yes.
Go back to rare. Go back to rare.
We have.
There we go. Giant at the top. There's something else at the bottom. That is just like a giant, but actually better in every way.
So it doesn't have as high toughness, but it does have regen, which is really, really important for things like cannonballs, right?
And it has spells, and it has troll vomit, and it has so many other special rules. And its random table, Motherly Love, which is hilarious, is actually significantly better than the Giants table. So it is 35 more points, but the Troll Hag is awesome. The model is cool, or you could use different models. Whatever model works for you. That's the thing that Orc and Goblins players have to choose. I'd encourage everybody to look at the Troll Hag. The Troll Hag, to me, 35 is a no-brainer. Giants are awesome. Troll Hag's still random, but between the two, I'm going to go with the Troll Hag.
Okay, so if we're going to do Grand Army, in order to take a Troll Hag, we have to take a unit of trolls. That's not a big deal at all because we have trolls you have to take one guy. So
yep,
that's not a big deal if we wanted to.
It's not.
However, I will point out to you,
Mike, the theme of your army.
So I will point out to you, Mike, that nothing we've taken in this list yet would not work in a troll horde because we don't have any night goblins, we don't have any black orcs. So all of these units could be in a troll horde instead.
I think that's true.
Yeah, and so just to point out that sometimes you get really excited about your list and you go, hey, wait a second. As long as I do this one thing, I can actually use an army of infantry that gives me some extra rules. And what else is in there? Well, for one, you get the reroll of the regen saves on your, for example, the big boss. He gets the Troll High Trousers. Now his regen is re-rollable if we take Troll Horde.
Now, this is where people will come up with, and you'll find yourself branching. And this is why I love all these. So we started with the theme of I love Savage Orcs, and we've gone pretty deep into Savage Orcs. Now we have an option of going a different army composition. Does that take away from your Savage Orc theme, Evan? Do you feel that way as a player?
Well, no, it doesn't. Now the reason for that is because and this is really, really common for people as well, and why Grand Army is so often the thing people take, is because people are building an army list with a theme in mind, and whether or not your army of infamy is like the exact same theme is kind of irrelevant. Like people take Host of Talzin to go for like having all tree spirits in their Wood Elf list, for example, and so they just try to use the rules to help massage it into the place they want it to be at, and the reason why most people are taking Grand Army in most lists is because it gives you the most flexibility. For example, if we're taking a High Elf army and I really want to do Swordmasters of Hoeth and I want to do like a Safari list, great. I have to do Grand Army because there are no Swordmasters in the other two army of me, right? So it's really restricted. And not every army is like that. So if we look at a Troll Horde, all you have to do is just have 2 common Troll Mobs or whatever, and those are like 40 points. And we can still have regular Orcs. These regular Orcs can still have Frenzy, they can still have Warpaint, they can still have Big Guns, right? And so we can just fill that in. We were pretty easily going to hit this number of core anyway once we add in a couple troll mobs. And then the only and then let's look at the characters. We still have the weird boss, the war boss, and everything else, right? So this would work perfectly fine as the troll horde and just get that extra regen bonus pretty much. And is there any other special rule for a troll horde? We really need to do our Orcs and Goblins Arcane Journal. It's one of the best Arcane Journals out there.
The troll hordes. It's the regen and the reroll of the
and then the magic lore.
I can't think off the top of my head what else they get. Give me a minute.
Yeah.
I love it. I haven't actually fielded it. I've been very focused on the Orcs.
Well, okay, so most people who run Troll Horde, it's like 2 Troll Hags as your characters, and then every single unit in your army is trolls. You don't have to do that. You can put other units in these lists. I think the only thing we're losing access to, Mike, is the Doom Divers. So in the Grand Army list we were in the middle of working on, right? What I wanted to do was I was going to throw in some Doom Divers, and then we were going to have plenty of Orcs that are running at you. And by the way, let's just put an Orc bully because we're Orcs, right? So we have to put that in there. All right, and we're just going to duplicate that and have 2 Doom Divers because those are incredibly useful units.
Oh, they're best stone throwers in the game, but you're going to run out of points real quick here, sir.
We're very, very close. We just have to get a single troll in here. And you know what? If we take one boar boy out, because we have a boss who's going to join this unit, so we could lose one boar boy. We are very close to just, if we just put a single troll, like let's say a single river troll, with a great weapon. That is 53 points. We're only over by 18. So you can always do it this way, where you just put all the stuff you want first, start filling in, and if you overshoot, then figure out what can we remove. We were already being criticized of how many points we put in these goblins who are probably going to die. Do we need all those points? Maybe we can have a couple less goblin boys, and then go from there. That's kind of where you start going with this.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I know I appreciate quite a bit, and I think a lot of players do about the Old World Army composition, this crunchy structure, is it allows you to really optimize your list of, I can't quite fit in what I really want, but you can start tweaking things here or there in order to squeeze out a few more points to allow you to get that stuff in. And I just love that fun, creative exercise, that puzzle, if you will, of constructing armies. And I think most people really enjoy that.
Okay, so I had to remove the orc bullies from these Doom Divers. It made me really sad to click that button.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was worth 20 points.
They're not as good as a certain ogre loader, I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's a different conversation.
Okay, let's get the Feigned Flight back on these delicious little goblins over here.
Do you still have points for all this? Let's go back.
And we're only over by 6. So if I remove my charm shield...
lose something. That's 5.
Do we need if we have Feigned Flight, do we need the boss? Because maybe we don't need the leadership because we're being near the general, right? And we have Feigned Flight for auto rally.
Yeah.
So we don't need that. And we're good. We're perfect. So
all right.
we've got 2 incredibly meaty, incredibly chunky melee units. We've also still have the war boss, who has up to 11 attacks when he charges in, which is absolutely great. He makes monsters harder to hit himself, and everybody has a 6-up ward basically across the board, other than these couple of goblin units. We've got some artillery, which has the ability to threaten people, and we have a wizard who's able to do a lot of damage. We have a troll hag, who we didn't talk about her. So does she take any items or anything? She's got regen, so she's kind of pretty good. Right?
She can, but honestly, she's so good you don't need to give her items.
The question is, do we do Hammerhand or do we do Big Smarts? Because those are the 6 spells, right?
Well, you know me, I'm gonna take the troll magic. If you're gonna take something.
And you really don't want her to fail her stupidity and then not get to combat, because you want her to get to combat, right?
Yeah. No, she's really good in combat. Yeah, like I said, she has a giant attack table, except it's just better, and it's hilarious. Where she starts hugging things and doing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and it's mother and mither and smother, so they all sound almost exactly the same.
It's so funny. It's really good. It's much better than the standard giant attack table. It's awesome.
Okay,
now again, you might hurt yourself, but you wouldn't be playing Orcs and Goblins if that.
So what I want to point out is that this list is maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10 on the competitive scale. But this is the kind of list that, let's say, a third of the players who come to a competitive tournament show up with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'd say more than a third. I would say at our events, I'd say half of the people are showing up with lists like this. The casual competitive players. And I'd say, sometimes more than that, right? It's very, very common. And so, and again, there's where you can rock up to an event because you just want to have it, you're not actually expecting to win the event, but you're having, in terms of winning the event, in terms of winning all your games, they're still winning the event of best painted, best hobby. There's plenty of we do mobile bingo at our events. There's trivia. We do all sorts of other stuff, but there's a version where you're rocking up to an event and your primary focus should be, how do I have an awesome day or an with a whole bunch of friends? We're just having a great time playing Old World because it's a great game. And so, with this list, even if you win 1 or 2, you're probably going to lose round 3 or 4. Go play the other people that have lost a game or 2, and you're going to have a great time because it's just a really fun list, and it's fun to talk about, and people are going to talk about, oh, look at that cool Savage list, and I can't wait to see it painted. And truly, I believe this is the better way to be playing this game. Don't get me wrong, playing competitively is fun, and there's definitely a lot of value and things like that as well. But for the vast majority of players, it's about having a great day with your friends, right? And that's what this series is going to be about: making awesome lists that are just fun to have and play with your friends.
Absolutely. So I made one more change. I just remembered that regular orc boys can skirmish, by the way, and so you could have a skirmishing warbow and shield unit that is a great bunker for a wizard. In particular, if let's say your first game of the day, which by the way, I think we made a mistake. We forgot to remove a slot for our wizard to go in this unit, right? So maybe we can add an extra orc here. So if you have some issues where you're like, man, this unit keeps charging off by itself and having a lot of issues, well, having a backup bunker for your orc to go in where he still gets his +1 to cast could be quite useful. And this is skirmisher units. They have 360 line of sight for their charges and for their casting. And so that could be quite useful. If you want to maybe play it a little bit less thematic, but a little bit better, you could just give these guys the regular orcs. They have light armor instead of frenzy, and then the wizard will have a little bit better of a time. But that's really up to you. It's exactly how dedicated to the theme you want to be.
Love it. All right. So I think that's video 1 of this series.
Yeah.
If you think this is fun and entertaining, please let us know and we'll much more.
And you know what?
Evan.
Actually, if you guys want to put in the comments what you want to see from us next, whether you want us to do a deep dive more onto like different ways to play Orc list, or whether you have a faction that you're really excited about. I originally intended for us to talk about multiple different army lists, but wow, we already talked for an hour about just this. So hopefully this gives you a vibe of like the way people put army lists together and they can still be competitive. I stuck with my theme the entire way through, but I picked the choices that I thought made sense.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up and we will see you all next time.
All right, stay legendary.